This is Money Guide with Mary Sterk from Sterk Financial Services. Now, here's Mary Sterk.
Welcome to Money Guide with Mary Sterk, and today's topic is budget-friendly ways to entertain your grandkids this summer. I think that sounds like a lot of fun. My little grandson is 5 years old, and when we get together, we're always looking for fun things to do, and some of them cost some money, but there are some ways that I've been scoping out that are a little bit more budget-friendly. And with me today, I have Kelsey Bankey. Kelsey's a CFP at Sterk Financial Services. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thanks, Mary. You know, this topic just put a smile right on my face because I love creative ways to spend time with kids. And I think that comes down from my grandparents were great at it. My mom was great at it. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. You know, we suffered from the farm crisis in the 80s, and my mom and my grandparents got so creative on how to keep all of us little kids entertained.
Yep.
And when I say all of us, there were a lot of us. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic.
So a lot of our listeners out there are grandparents, like me, but a lot of our listeners are also parents of small children like Kelsey is. And so some of these things are going to be able to cross over from generation to generation, no matter who you are, if you're spending some time with a young child this summer. All right. So one of the things that when we kind of put this list together of budget-friendly ways to do it, it's involving like game theory, right? So thinking about how to spend time with your grandkids or your kids, but make it a game. And one of the ideas that we saw was a treasure hunt. Now, a treasure hunt in and of itself can be kind of fun. And the old idea of a scavenger hunt is a fun idea. But the idea that we have that makes it really budget-friendly is to make it a nature treasure hunt. And so if you are going to go somewhere that's a nature center or go somewhere that's more of a wooded area or go to a park or something like that, if you can create a list of all the things that they can find in nature that's part of the scavenger hunt, that's free. And it also doesn't involve your children or grandchildren talking to strangers to find what they need to find.
Absolutely. And don't forget, in a child's mind, the world is this magical place. So even though something might just we'd go hiking in my grandparents' timber area every summer. And it's literally just a couple acres of wooded area. There's nothing hugely special about it. But if a tree would have fallen across a valley between two of the hills, that was a bridge that we could walk across, and you had to be able to do it without falling. And to this day, we took my son with my grandparents out there and did that. There's this giant rock that got left on the property from a glacier. And so we always had to find the giant rock. So keep in mind, it doesn't have to be magical to you, but you can make a lot of things magical for kids.
And I think there's a lot of magic to be found in nature.
Absolutely.
So think about doing a nature-oriented treasure hunt on the days when the weather is nice. Now, thinking about the days when the weather might not be so nice, movie marathons are kind of a fun idea to do with grandchildren. And it depends on the age of your grandchildren about how long they can keep their attention. But one of the fun ideas that we came up with that's budget friendly is to organize a movie marathon with other people that have other kids your kids' age and make it like a round robin house to house thing. So let's just say that maybe it was the Harry Potter series of movies. Maybe you watch it first movie at one house and you have a certain kind of snack, and then you go to the next person's house and you watch the second movie and have a certain kind of snack, and then kind of round robin it around like that. Super budget friendly way. All you're really spending money on some snacks and renting some movies.
And keep in mind, we all have the benefit of this wonderful tool called Pinterest. and they have a lot of really great ideas on how to very inexpensively amp up the fun. So, the stuff they can do with toilet paper rolls and pipe cleaners and extra paper is just amazing. So if you need something to make it a little bit more exciting for some of those older kids, look for ideas on there too, that things that you can come up with inexpensively.
The snacks itself can kind of be a fun thing in and of itself, right? So when I was a youngster and we would visit my grandparents, they had an old fridge out in an outbuilding on their farm, and every single day we got to go out in the afternoon and we could pick out one soda. Soda, pop, whatever you want to call it. We called it soda when I was growing up, but you could pick out one soda a day. And like going out there and then making the selection of your soda was such a big deal because they had orange and they had grape and they had cola and they had Big Red. And I don't even know if people know what I'm talking about when I say Big Red, but that was like the bomb diggity of sodas to be able to go out and get one of those Big Reds before all my brothers and sisters did. But it's kind of funny that that's what sticks in my mind is like the soda of the day was a huge deal. And something is, we don't think about that because there's so much plenty in our lives right now. And it's so easy to hand your kids something. And I'm not saying soda is a great thing to give your youngsters, but that was a big deal for me. And it's something that can create memories on a super low budget when you're trying to think about how you want to.
Popsicles too.
That's
the win in my house. Like you get the giant box of those plastic freeze pops and one a day, and that kid is very, very thrilled. So
another thing that is kind of fun to do when you think about summertime that's low budget is, of course, people like to spend time at the pool or at the beach, right? And sometimes just the endless days of swimming are good enough, and sometimes it's good to have some additional entertainment value propped into there. And one of the best ideas that we came up with for low budget ways to spend time with your grandkids is to have a sandcastle building contest at the beach. Some of the local pools even might have a sandy area that you can do that too. And if you get real creative with it, when you start talking about moats and you start talking about towers and castles and maybe even bring some action figures to play within those sandcastles, it gets really fun with those little kids.
I was going to say for $1 at the dollar store in town, you can get a whole pack of little animals from like the zoo. And my son would just go nuts trying to figure out where to put all those little animals on a sandcastle. So for some free sand and $1 pack of animals, you've got a whole afternoon.
Yep. And then water games at the pool are also fun and pretty low impact on us as we get older as grandparents, right? You only need 3 people to play Marco Polo. So when you are thinking about how to spend time with them at the pool, just thinking about some of those interactive things is a really good idea. I'm just a big fan of getting kids outside and away from video games all summer. And, it's easy to have them spend time playing video games. And I don't think there's anything wrong with them doing that a little bit, but I'd sure rather have that interaction, and to be able to find inexpensive ways to do it is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. When you think about the things that made your childhood great, video games weren't really a big thing when I was a kid, so they were just starting to be coming out. But I had the most fun just outside playing, using my imagination, finding new stuff. So keep that up with your kids.
One of the things that I really enjoyed when I was little was being read to. And there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. You can have a story hour in your own home. When I was young, my mom would read us stories while we worked on like different craft projects or coloring or things like that. And she'd read my siblings and I all the same story while we were all kind of messing around working on stuff. But now they have different story hours for kids at local bookstores. So for instance, Barnes & Noble has story hours in their kids book area, and then the kids can look at the books, different books while they're there. That's actually a really good way to pass an afternoon.
Yeah, we used to go to the library and spend an entire morning at the library. And there were, I had 3 sisters, and we're all very close in age, and that entertained 4 different ages of kids. And it was exciting. And I've seen things now recently at the libraries is to read 1,000 books over the summer or something like that. Awesome. It's a challenge. The kids have something to grow to. You can set different challenge points along the way that if they get to the 100 book mark, you can do something special or they get a special prize, and keep encouraging them to read and read and read, because that's a whole nother way to explore the world, or other worlds even, is to read books and to learn and kids who read a lot of books, there's tons of studies out there that they are going to most likely do better in school just because they've had that extra literacy exposure.
Right. So not only is it low budget and inexpensive, but it's an incredible educational experience and a great connective experience. My grandma would read us a series when we would go visit her, and it was called The Campfire Girls. That was my favorite series. And I will tell you that my mom reading to me and my grandma reading to me as I was growing up gave me a love of reading, which continues to this day. I also think that that gave me a better command of vocabulary, a broader vocabulary for when I'm speaking, and it also gave me the ability, I think, to write. And speaking of writing and speaking of bookstores, later today, we actually have a book signing that I'm doing at Barnes & Noble in Sioux City, Iowa from 1 to 3. So if you're listening to this, hop on out to Barnes & Noble this afternoon. Come on out and have a cup of coffee on me and get a book and get it signed. And we'd love to meet you and put a face with some of the listeners. And my new book, Ready to Pull the Retirement Trigger, will be signing from 1 to 3 this afternoon.
Congratulations to Mary Sterk and the team at Sterk Financial for earning a spot on 2 Forbes lists for 6 years running, including 2023 Forbes Best in State Wealth Advisors and 2023 Forbes Top Women Wealth Advisors Best in State, #1 in South Dakota.
Welcome back to Money Guide with Mary Sterk, and today we're talking about budget-friendly ways to entertain your grandkids this summer. So we've talked about a number of different things. I'm going to go back to the movie idea for just a minute. A lot of communities have either free movies or they have low-cost movies where it's not going to feel like you had to take out a small loan to take your family to the movies. So my recommendation with that is just check out what the local deals are. I mean, a lot of them have older movies, but your kids like the experience of going to the theater. And then movies in the park is also a really kind of fun experience. And a lot of communities have movies in the park that are free. And that's just kind of a whole different kind of neat experience to go, have with your family.
Here's another one real quick. Getting a lot of bang for your buck. So if we drove an hour from my home, we could go to a drive-in movie theater, and they always showed a double feature for the price of one movie, we got 2 movies plus a drive-in movie theater when you're a kid is like, it's the coolest thing ever. Right. I'm going to watch movies from the back of my car, and it's like there's bugs and like cool stuff. And like the one we went to had corn surrounding it, and it was the coolest thing ever. So if you're going to spend the money on it, then look for even more value in it by getting a couple movies included or something like that. But again, kids find the world to be a very wonderful place.
So one of the things you can do with kids who are a little bit older is something that's kind of new. You might not have heard about it before, and it's called geocaching. And geocaching is kind of a takeoff on an idea of the treasure hunt, but a geocaching is a technology-driven scavenger hunt that basically you play with strangers. Okay, so it's tying into the kids who, maybe have apps on their phones, who are a little bit older, and basically they're little treasures hidden in your area by other players. They're usually left in a small waterproof container, and when you follow the clues to find the geocache that you're trying to get to, when you find it, you make a note in the logbook that you have found it, and then you're on to another clue. So kind of take a look and Google out there in your community if there's any geocaching things that are out there or groups that are out there. It's kind of an odd little thing to tie into that most people don't even know exists.
My mother-in-law actually got into this with my niece and nephew, and it is really fun because you never know what you're going to find. You never know where you're going to find it. A lot of times it's parks or sometimes on the side of the road in the country, which is, they're from Missouri. There's a lot more country where they're from. And it's just, in the school playground, you just never know where you're going to find it, on the park bench, on the downtown square. And it's fun because people walking by have no clue what you're doing.
Right.
But you're finding this treasure. So it is a little bit more on the tech side, but there's apps and websites out there that you can go to and see what's in your area and then look for them.
So another thing that we find is a great budget-friendly way to entertain your grandkids in the summer is to involve food. And that can come in a number of different ways. So fruit picking has become something that is kind of a fun thing that people can do with their families, and gardening, and even going to the farmers markets. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a big push now for healthy eating. There's a big push for organic types of foods. And to be able to take your grandchildren or your small children through an experience where it's basically nature to table is a really good learning experience for them. Plus, it's oftentimes fairly inexpensive if you've grown some of this stuff yourself.
Some of my most fun memories growing up have to do with being in the garden with my grandma, or being in the kitchen with the harvest with my grandma. And, it's fun at first, then sometimes it's a little bit of work, but if you have some, creativity, you can keep kids really into it. And to this day, my sisters and I all laugh because we just want to go to grandma's garden and pull a kohlrabi out of the ground and just start eating it. That was like such a special treat to eat something we literally just pulled out of the ground. And most people don't even like the taste of it, but I do because I grew up on it. But do not overestimate or overlook that option, because it will be something kids remember.
Another thing connected to food that's often fun and very low budget is to have a baking day. And what I mean by that is to involve your grandkids in looking through cookbooks, especially ones that have lots of fun pictures, and letting them help you figure out what you want to bake, getting the ingredients for it, and then having a special baking day. And, creating something from scratch is not something that kids often do anymore, especially in these days of prepackaged cookies or, easy to go buy off the shelf things. And so creating something from scratch like that, not only does it give you a wonderful experience of time spent together, there's usually some delicious morsels at the end of it for everyone to enjoy, but you might even inspire a lifelong love of baking or cooking in one of your grandchildren or children. All right. Another thing that kids love clearly is pets. Pets are something that most kids just delight in and often easily relate to. So finding a farm to visit or a nearby petting zoo or your local zoo is a great idea. But if your kids are a little older, one of the things that's a fabulous idea to do with them is to volunteer at your local Humane Society and to go help take care of some of the animals. You can volunteer to do some dog walking. You can volunteer to just pet the cats. I know that sounds funny, but you can just go to pet cats for an afternoon. And what a wonderful afternoon that can be.
We totally did that. We would go to the Humane Society. My sisters and I would ask, can we go see the kitties and the puppies? We'd always ask that, and that meant go to the Humane Society. The other thing is, there's animals all around us anyway. So we would go to a local cemetery, had a pond with some swans and ducks, and we would take bird seed and go feed them. And that's completely free. So again, any kind of animal will get your kids excited, and finding them wherever you can is a great thing too.
Now for older kids, teaching them how to drive might be a kind of exhilarating experience or kind of a terrifying experience. I don't know, but I know that my grandpa taught me how to drive a stick shift. So my parents had taught me how to actually drive, but that was with an automatic. And I have a very clear memory of going out with my grandpa in his old stick shift pickup and him teaching me how to drive that vehicle. And I will tell you that to this day, I am so thankful that he did, because not everybody knows how to drive a stick. And I feel like that's a very valuable piece of knowledge to have, because you never know when that's going to be the only vehicle available and you're going to have to get in there and know how to drive that.
They say now in America, having a stick shift car is the best security system you can have for your vehicle. Because it is a lost art. And I laugh with Mary, because when we talk about, thinking of memories from childhood, I'm like, oh, my memories are all going to be pretty rural, because I grew up in the country on farms. All of my family have century farms behind them. And so Mary was taught how to drive a stick shift car. I was taught how to drive a tractor. And that was very exciting, because you're on this giant piece of equipment and you're going through the middle of a field, and luckily there's a lot of space. So if you're not too straight in driving, you can resolve that and not take out anything too big. But Anything where kids are learning some additional responsibility makes them feel very grown up.
As a total aside, part of that memory with my grandpa was I didn't grow up with anybody who chewed tobacco, but my grandpa did, and he had his spit cup right there in the truck. And so the goal of learning to drive the stick shift was to not be so bumpy that you knocked over the spit cup.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you might have just topped me.
So, all right. Another idea that's kind of fun to do with your grandkids that's very budget friendly is to write a story together. And there's different ways that you can do this. So you can each, you can have them dictate to you what to write and you can write it down. You can, you come up with a paragraph and then they come up with a paragraph. You can have one day where you add a chapter and one day where they add a chapter. You can have them kind of dictate the storyline and do the illustrations. So there's a lot of different ways to engage your kids, especially when it's either rainy outside or too hot to go outside, or if they're just kind of tired from the other activities. You can kick off a story, create a goofy character at the start of an adventure, and then let their little minds take it from there. And that's a really fun thing to do. When my youngest son was growing up, he had a series of characters that were puppies versus kitties. And we have a whole set of books that he wrote when he was like 6 or 7 years old and illustrated that are about these puppies versus the kitties. And they're these just super precious memories that we have together.
Another thing to keep in mind is, and I'm a big supporter of this, cities and communities are always trying to offer fun things or educational things or very inexpensive things for their citizens to do. And so look in your local newspaper, look on websites. I know here I can go to the local newspaper and look up their community calendar, and it is literally stock full of things for people to do for, like I said, either very inexpensively or free. And every topic you could ever want. I mean, there's murder mystery games for teenagers. There's kids yoga in the park on Saturday mornings. Anything you could ever want is going to be probably in there. And the really important thing on that is, if you want your community to do things, you need to make sure you're going out and supporting what they are doing so that they want to do more for. If they see positive results and they see positive turnout, they'll keep doing those things, but you have to support it. But if you're not sure where to look in the newspaper, look in the websites, look on community calendars, look on the news sites, community calendars, and there is lots and lots of activities for you to do with your grandchildren.
Fantastic, Kelsey. So thanks for listening. We know that summer can get really expensive when you have kids or when you have grandkids around, and the cost of the vacations, the summer camps, or the extra daycares can really put a strain on budgets. And so these are some great inexpensive ways, budget-friendly ways to entertain your grandkids this summer. Come out and see us at Barnes & Noble this afternoon from 1 to 3 and pick up a copy of my new book and enjoy some time at the bookstore. Come have coffee on us. We'd love to see you there. And thanks for listening to Money Guide with Mary Sterk.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of your audio provider and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities or services mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can ensure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should only be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Securities and investment advisory services are offered through Woodbury Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance offered through Sterk Financial Services, which is not affiliated with Woodbury Financial Services Incorporated. Neither Woodbury Financial Services Incorporated nor its representatives provide tax or legal advice. You should consult a qualified attorney or tax professional to answer your specific questions. Sterk Financial Services is located at 350 Oak Tree Lane, Suite 150, Dakota Dunes, South Dakota, 57049, and can be reached at 605-217-3555.
Forbes Best in State Wealth Advisors list includes 10 recipients per state. The award is based on qualitative and quantitative data, rating thousands of wealth advisors with a minimum of 7 years of experience and weighing factors like revenue trends, assets under management, compliance records, industry experience, and best practices. The award is not based on portfolio performance or client reviews. There is no fee in exchange for rankings. Third-party rankings and recognitions are no guarantee of future investment success and do not ensure that a client or prospective client will experience a higher level of performance or results. These ratings should not be construed as an endorsement of the advisor by any client, nor are they representative of any one client's evaluation.